Hello, and thank you for joining us for another segment of Ask the Therapist. Today, we have a returning guest, Dr. Sara Ruebelt, and Sara Ruebelt has been with us before. How are you today, Sara?
Wonderful. Pleasure to see you.
Wonderful to have you again. You're so beautiful and has such a wonderful spirit. I love having her on our show. Dr. Ruebelt, would you mind reintroducing yourself to our audience?
Of course, yes. My name is Sara Ruebelt. I am a family therapist. I am currently practicing in Clayton, Missouri, Clayton area, and I have recently moved from Davis, California, and I am returning home in some ways. And I'm a graduate from St. Luke's University, so it's definitely a feeling of returning home. And yes, I'm happy to be at your show again.
Sure. So we want to kind of pick up a little bit from where we left off in the last segment. We covered some of your practice methods and some of the things that you like to consider yourself a specialist in or you focus on. So one of the things that we did not go in depth about was exactly what your practice approach is. How would you describe your approach with your clients?
Of course. I incorporate a variety of different approaches and school of thoughts. For example, when I do couples therapy, I'm really fond of emotionally focused therapy, and I like to think of myself as a social constructivist because I believe in social constructivist theory, and the premise is that multiple realities exist at one time.
Sure.
And I think especially as a multicultural therapist, someone who likes to basically help people from different parts of the world, from different cultural backgrounds, different orientations, sexual identities, anything that really falls under the category of diversity. I believe that I need to come from a not knowing stance as a therapist, and just I believe in multiple realities existing at one time, and I truly try to explore where my clients are coming from, what their background is. I oftentimes do a full assessment on the first session to really get to know their background, and that entails doing a genogram, but a lifeline exercise, and getting to know their context. That's so important to me. That's understanding their realities and getting to know, and collaboratively. So my approach is very collaborative. I want to work with individuals so that together we can find out what basically how we can improve their quality of life.
Absolutely. So I like what you said about the different perspectives or the different realities existing at once, and to have an objective view is very important, because the view that you have not subjectively interpreted your reality to exist in would possibly be the view that will get you a change in your life.
Absolutely.
Correct?
Absolutely. Okay. And we do get stuck oftentimes in that tunnel vision in which we believe what we believe, and oftentimes we could be sort of hijacked with those distorted thoughts that take us in that tunnel vision, and we see things black and white, and we are not able to see the big picture.
Absolutely. And you mentioned how cultural perspective may play a part in that, and how you're able to then incorporate your ability to distinguish the differences in certain cultures, and how to maybe incorporate, I guess, a more generalized or a more, what do I want to say, I guess open perspective to get whatever culture it is to incorporate their ideas and their concepts into a more generalized perspective. So how does then maybe some cultural stigmas or biases, how does that play into addressing those perspectives that they may have that's based on cultural awareness?
Absolutely. Well, I'll just dive into some of the research that I've done, with my dissertation at UC Davis, and with St. Luke's University at UC Davis. Basically, the idea of cross cultures, in particular, let's give the example of intermarriage, for example. Two people coming from two different cultures, two different backgrounds. And oftentimes people think that those differences tear them apart, and they're not seeing things eye to eye. But at the end of the day, those two people got together because of the commonalities that they share. Things that they actually have in common, like values, the meaning of life, the things that's important. And so I think that is so incredibly significant to actually draw those commonalities and the values that they share, and let them see that, but also highlight the differences that do exist, and to how to appreciate those differences as opposed to be threatened by it. But back to the cross-cultural, I think you mentioned something about the stigmas, correct? The stigmas, well, we can start with the stigmas of therapy. I think that exists in all cultures, right? There's so much stigma to this day in our profession as to why people don't like to seek help or don't want to proceed. You know, one of them could be that whole idea of if I go seek someone's help, that could mean something negative, like I am not capable, I'm not strong enough, I'm not, you know, or worst case scenario, something is wrong with me, I'm going to be labeled. And I think that, you know, to sort of give that whole history of how this came about. I mean, I think that the DSM, the diagnostic criteria, didn't help with that, because once you're given a label, a lot of times people feel that label is stuck with them for life. So I'm not in favor of always you know, seeing things from that perspective and utilizing those labels. I want people to understand or just recognize that something is impacting the quality of their life, and that they have a chance and the opportunity to improve that, improve their life, improve the quality of their life. And so to understand what's bothering them, we don't even oftentimes necessarily need the label. But of course it helps to know, yes, I'm suffering from depression, for example. I'm suffering from constant, you know, anxiety, panic attacks. These things are true aspects of reality for a lot of people.
Symptoms too that they're having. So when you say that, when you're talking to a person, and I want to go back to the couples, I think, because I thought you made a really good, important point with the couples. When you said, instead of focusing on what the differences they have, that you look at the commonalities and they build from there, and how the differences could then become, you do want to focus on it, because that's usually what's causing a gap between them, or standing as a barrier, or the differences. So you're looking at the differences then as an opportunity to learn and to grow and to build, because they get to share the cultures that way. So I just wanted to highlight that point a little bit, because I thought that was very important. Because oftentimes when people come to us with what they consider an issue or a problem or a barrier, if it's using that perspective window, if it's looked at from another perspective of being an opportunity to grow, then you can build from that. You don't dismiss it or discount the problem, but you're building from it. So that was important to know. Now, with the stigmas, the cultural stigmas, where you say that the person may decide, because they're having the problem of anxiety or whatever the label is, that we're not wanting to look at the diagnosis, but you're still wanting to address the symptoms,
of course,
and challenge the symptoms
because
without
the
focusing
symptoms are
on
real, and they are, you know, collaboratively mentioned in working with someone. They're going to come in and talk about how, for example, they're losing appetite, they're not sleeping well, they're having thoughts of not wanting to be alive, they're having you know, just a disconnect from life altogether, or loss of meaning about all the things that matter most to them. And so all these things are actually experienced by individuals, and oftentimes they're feeling extremely alone and isolated, back to the whole floodgate of distorted thoughts coming through, which is oftentimes, you know, many categories such as all or nothing thinking, black and white thinking, generalizing, you know, and this is actually happening on a daily basis for individuals who are suffering from depression, anxiety, you know, the kind of despair that really makes you not want to get out of bed, not want to connect with anyone, not want to leave the house, you know, to do any of the activities you used to love doing, whether that is, you know, singing, dancing, I mean, even just going to the gym and exercising. You know, when you recognize that you're not doing those things and you're completely disconnecting yourself, I urge people to just be honest with themselves and say, am I happy? You know, asking that question is so important. Am I happy? Am I truly living the life that I've always wanted? If the answer is no, well, you deserve more. You deserve to seek help. And I think that in our profession, that's what we're there for. And it's not about putting anyone in a box and putting a category or a label on them. So, but to say a little bit more about how these stigmas are created and cross cultures, I think that oftentimes people shy away from seeking help from a professional. Sometimes, even they might rely on their religion. I mean, to think, for example, that all they need is the spirituality aspect, which I think I honor that, and I just want to say that those things can be incorporated in the therapy work that they end up doing with their therapist. It's absolutely honored, and it's absolutely important. It's part of their identity. But again, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. It doesn't have to be one or the other. It can be incorporated.
So when those stigmas are presenting, I guess, a barrier to actually initiating this process with a person, then you're saying rather than dispelling the whole thoughts about whatever the stigma is, if they're looking at it as, it says something's wrong with me, or it's a taboo because of my religion or my culture, instead of dismissing that, then you're saying we're incorporating that, because this is the approach is based on what the person brings to you.
Absolutely.
So if they happen to bring those stigmas to you, then you're also addressing that in your process of therapy with them.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's important to know, that we're not dismissing anything, because everything about you as a person is valuable that you bring to this process. Absolutely. Because it's going to be customized for your need. Absolutely. Okay, so when we're you were mentioning about the levels of depression and the isolation and some of the things that a person may be doing or not doing that they used to do, because when we use the term happy, sometimes, of course, there's relative to each individual what happy means to them. So when they're not then involved in some of the activities that they used to be, or they're finding themselves not wanting to be around people or isolating, what would you say would be the first step that they would need to take if they want to see change in their behavior? Because oftentimes, to be honest, we know that people often would use any other means,
absolutely,
like self-medicating themselves, or maybe with drugs or alcohol, or an addiction of any kind, gambling. There's all kinds of addictions that people get involved because they need an escape from their reality, what they perceive as their reality. So what do you think would need to happen for that person to feel that this therapy that you offer, that we offer, is probably the first place to go for them for the help?
Well, I'm going to answer that in two ways, or two sides to your question. One is that I think the concept of individualism and collectivism comes to my mind when I hear you say that. Because I think about how an individual can think about their situation and want to seek help, and they might be aware of what's happening, and they might recognize there's resources, and they're going to go after it. And sometimes they have to overcome their own stigmas and barriers that's holding them back, and say, you know what, I'm willing to give this a try, and push through that. But sometimes the individual might be able to achieve that alone, and sometimes not. Sometimes an individual needs the help of people around her or him to be sort of pulled towards that support that's available. Because, I think of someone, for example, who's suffering from depression, who's isolating herself, who's not leaving home, who's not doing anything. I think that it does take other people to come and say, I think that it would help you to go talk to someone. I'm willing to go with you. Let's go do family therapy. That's why I think as a family therapist, I welcome joint sessions, even with individuals who say, I really would like to bring my spouse for a session or a year. I think it's so important to have those joint sessions, because you belong to a system. You belong to, I have that systemic, approach as well in my background. So I see things from a systems theories perspective, that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, and you're not just one individual, and it's the system that you belong to, and sometimes you need the system to come with you, because we're in this together as a family, as a society, and as our community. We can help each other. And I think, let's break through those stigmas in our community. How oftentimes happens that you see someone hurt, but you don't know what's the right way of approaching them and saying, are you okay? Are things okay in your life? You know, people just generally stick to the surface of saying, hello, how are you? I'm fine, thank you. And they shy away from digging deeper with each other to say, hey, I notice, you know, you haven't been coming, I don't know, to PTO meetings or to church or to even Zumba class or whatever. You know, I'm giving examples, but you know what?
Zumba class.
People don't say that. I know. I love Zumba. I love Zumba. I just came up with that. That's just my world.
She just reminded me.
But you know,
I'm depressed. I just
been busy. I've been there. But you know, I think that I guess I'm encouraging people to reach out to one another more, to collectively see our battle against depression and anxiety and trauma and all those things to be something that we do as a whole. It's not one individual. It's not a war against that one person. Yes. We're all in this together, and we need each other to help and connect. And the connection is the answer. You know, the disconnect is the poison of all things and the cause of all these illnesses, emotional ailments. I think connecting is something that we really need to push for in our society.
I believe bringing your perspective of collectivism is so important. I love how you incorporated that in your explanation of how a person can first initiate, you know, this process, because in Western civilization, we do think more of, you know, as individuals, you know, instead of a collective society. But in nature, in human life, in ecology, everything is a system.
There you go.
So because
all
everything, yes, because it makes so much sense to bring that together in the way that you did. Because if a person, the more they isolate, the more they are removing their strengths and their ability to function in cooperation with everything that lives around them. So I think, you know, just taking that message alone, if you're thinking that, you know, I'm in this by myself, I'm feeling bad, I'm depressed, I don't want to be around people, but when you think about what you're pulling away from, you're pulling away from the very energy, the very support that can help you get better. And what we bring as therapists, obviously, and what Sara so beautifully described, is we bring the ability for you to utilize the strengths that you have and the awareness that you have to at least open yourself up to the other perspectives.
And to connect to someone outside yourself. And I think the therapeutic relationship provides the safety, you know.
Absolutely, and that's a very good point.
Because it's like you get to experience that. It might be terrifying to go out there to your community, to your people again, because you're just flooded with these, you know, distorted thoughts, and you're overwhelmed, and every single aspect of social gatherings and things, you know, just bring more anxiety and stress to you. But to think of the therapeutic relationship in a sacred way, in a way that really puts it in the context of safety and, you know, non-judgmental, confidentiality. Absolutely.
Is very important, because I know that one of the main stigmas that a person may, one of the things they may have resistance about coming into a situation like this is, I'm embarrassed, I'm ashamed, this has been a secret, I don't want to tell anybody. You know,
everyone's tired of seeing me like this.
Right. If they're feeling like, you know, because I have always kept to myself and I've always been a private person, to understand that not only do we bring a professional perspective where we're trained and have the ability to deal with whatever it comes out and whatever is exposed, but that your information is also confidential. So you have an unbiased person that is not associated with you, that's a professional, and it's also confidential. That piece right there is usually what makes sessions work and effective for me, because if a person could come in and totally be like, here it all is, and just lay it out there, that is therapeutic in itself.
Absolutely.
Correct?
I couldn't agree more. And I want to add to this, I want to also say that there's a lot of us out there who are providing therapy in different school of thought and different theoretical, you know, approaches. And I think that it's important for people to know that it's not always, it's not always an identical, I guess a match from the start. You sometimes might have an experience, and it doesn't mean that you did something wrong. It just could be that particular approach or that particular therapist is not compatible to you.
That's a very
I think it's so important to have rapport, built with therapists.
Yes, it is.
And have, just leave the feeling of, oh my gosh, this person really gets me. This individual truly understands me. I truly feel empathized with. I truly feel identified as, you know, a human being. My voice is being heard. And that connection is everything. I mean, that's the biggest part of, I would say, therapeutic success.
It sure is.
Right?
Yes.
And so that,
The
so I think that oftentimes people don't talk about that. I hear oftentimes people have experiences they, because I've spoken to people in different, you know, parts of life, and, you know, ask them what their experience have been in therapy, have they ever, and people often say things like, you know, it's just not for me. I tried it once and it just didn't
and it was
feel
possibly
right.
the
It wasn't
relationship
right. I didn't
with
have a
that
connection.
therapist.
I didn't feel like this person understood me. And not that I want to defend that therapist. I think that, you know, again, all of us may have a situation where someone just didn't connect. And that's totally normal, and it's nothing is wrong with you wanting to try someone else. I just would not want them to give up.
Don't give up on the process.
It's important
it possibly was just the match of the therapist.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, definitely we have hit on several topics that I'm sure has been very helpful for our listeners. And we definitely want to highlight all your information again, but as you know, we're using 2 venues for this show. So if you would like to, again, give us some information about how a person may contact you if they'd like to set up an appointment with you.
Absolutely. I think the best way to reach me is through phone or email.
Okay.
Text messages are also welcome. But yes, I am also on Psychology Today Therapy Directory and Psychotherapy St. Louis. But
okay, good.
The phone numbers are 530-302-7322. And
then there's a 314 number you have listed here. It's area code 314-594-7322. And she's located in Clay, Missouri at 7750 Clayton Road, Suite 210, Clay, Missouri 63117. In your email, we'll have all this on the end screen, but I'll go ahead and if you want your email announced, is Sara.Ruebelt, just like it's spelled on the sign. Sara.Ruebelt@gmail.com is her email if you'd like to contact her. And again, she has a full profile on Psychology Today. So if you go to Psychology Today and just type in her name, Sara Ruebelt, it will give you all the information. It will give you the information about the insurances or the payment source that she takes, and it will also give you a lot more information about her approach. I know her approach sounds very interesting. It was very informative, but she has more information about the approach on the profile page as well.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Okay. And my website is being constructed currently, so the Psychology Today website has a nice bio.
Yes, I read it. It's wonderful. I think it's very accurate also about covering what she does. So it's been great having you again. It's always such a pleasure. Like I said, you bring such a beautiful spirit, and any person that would ever have a session with you, I'm sure would get this same energy. You know, when I first met you, we connected right away.
Yes,
I don't know if it's the California West Coast vibe that she brings, but she's a very easy to talk to and open person. So I'm sure that if you meet her, you will love your sessions with her and be helped greatly with her expertise. So until we meet again, and I hope we do get to meet again, it's been a pleasure having you. I really enjoy your presence.
Same here, pleasure.
We'd like to just remind everybody, again, with closing the show, this is Carolyn Catchings, and I'm reminding you, as Sara has mentioned also, we are a collective race of people. So if you decide that you would need to address your human health, your personal health, and your mental health, I'm reminding you to not attempt to take the path of your mental health wellness alone, but to ask a therapist.
Absolutely. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
It's been great.
Good to see you.
Again. Okay.